Hey guys, welcome back to Interstage Window, my Saturday stream, which is usually a conversation with my friends and usually Landon, who is here with me today. Say hi, Landon.
Hi, Landon.
Ah, oh my gosh, Landon. And this is part two of our Euphoria stream today, right? Like, what are we going to talk about?
We're going to talk about Euphoria. We're going to focus on some of the characters we didn't talk about last time, which of course includes some of our favorites.
Hmm.
And we're just going to talk about how messy it is to just be a part of this fandom, but also just how messy the show is. The show is messy. It's a mess.
We're going to be focusing on season two, but we're also going to be mentioning season one. The last stream was similar. We were focusing on season one, but we mentioned season two, so all of that. And this is a stream, so for my YouTube viewers, I just want to let y'all know, if you want to skip past all of the introduction stream nonsense that we like to do, then you want to skip down to the timestamp called The Reaction. That's when the real Euphoria content starts, so that's what you want to skip to.
But also, our takes are cool, and so you should stick around.
You should. You actually should just watch the whole thing. All right, let me switch it over to the slideshow so we can get started.
My
Okay.
polka dots. I'm still so happy that I knew the name of these dots.
You did, and I was like, and I didn't know how to spell it, so I was like, I don't know, nothing pops up when I Google, but they totally are called polka dots. I had no idea. I had no idea that's what they were
It was
called.
a whole thing, and this was why I was like, oh man, I do have a positive intelligence modifier.
Yes, and I learned something new. These are called bokeh dots as opposed to polka dots, which are opaque. But when they're like this, they're bokeh dots.
They're polka dots. It's very dreamy. Anyway, Euphoria. Let's get started.
Euphoria Part 2.
Important content warning with this is that here at Interstage Window, we are not spoiler free for a stream, and this stream will contain spoilers for both season 1 and season 2. So if you don't want to be spoiled, pause this or coming back and watch the VOD later and watch season 1 and season 2 of Euphoria so that you can be all in with all the cool stuff that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're going to get angry at us for talking about shit, you were warned. You were warned.
You were warned. We're not spoiler free. We don't care about spoilers. So there you go.
Also on the same sort of coin, Euphoria contains underage drinking, drug use, and sex. We will also be discussing toxic relationships, extremely toxic relationships, self-identification, and societal expectations. If any of that ekes you out or is a trigger for you, bow out when you need, but we're going to be talking about it anyway because our media analysis are not for you, they're for us.
That's right. And then
your entertainment, but our pleasure.
So as the kids are saying, if any of this is your ick, I learned that from TikTok. It's this new thing.
That's been around forever.
Yeah, but I didn't know about it because I don't talk to kids. So
well, it's like that. You can't yum someone's ick or something, or you can't.
No, you don't
yum or something like
no,
that.
that's I don't want to yuck your yum. That's been around for forever.
Okay.
Yeah, but ick, I just heard this. So if any of these things are your ick, then we're going to talk about them. And I also actually would recommend not watching Euphoria if any of these things are not comfortable for you, because it's all over the show.
This is Euphoria right here.
This is a dead dove do not eat show. So there you go. Now you know.
All right. But as we do with every stream, let's start with some of our favorite things. So Karen, really focusing on season 2 of Euphoria, what was one of your favorite things?
Okay, so my favorite thing is Lori, and I chose this for my favorite thing because we don't really have time to talk about her in deep dive, but I just want to mention her because she is a character that I think I felt a little bit of what kind of the overall fandom was feeling, where I was just so jazzed for her when she was introduced. She was so cool, she was so compelling. And then there's a part in the show, by the way, if you need a summary for Euphoria because you haven't seen it but you want to watch, you can find that in our first episode, which is on my YouTube channel. So go watch that first. That has the summary because I'm not going to fully explain it. But anyway, so she has a part in season 2 where she tells Rue that if Rue messes with her, if Rue, doesn't get her money, then she's gonna basically sell Rue off into sex slavery. That's what's implied. That's not what she says. She just says she knows very scary men, but that's what's implied. And then, like, Rue does not get her money. I mean, she gets her a small portion of her money through a series of shenanigans. And then Lori basically comes back and just kind of like nurses her. And so it was one of these things where it's like I'm a little unclear on what the point of this was. Like, I know that there's a lot of unreliable narrator going on in here, which we're going to talk about narrators later, and that Rue maybe lied about like what Lori said to her, or maybe the nursing bit's a lie. It's unsure, it's unclear. But I remember with this character being like so jazzed for her and thinking like she is so freaking cool in the little bits that we have, but then in her scenes at the end where she's nursing Rue, I'm a little bit like, huh, what's going on here? I'm not really sure. So I have hopes that we'll see more of her in season 3, which I'm sure we're gonna have a season 3 of Euphoria because this show has still been widely popular despite the reaction to season 2, which we're gonna talk about that too. Because I find her very intriguing.
I also, yeah, I find her very intriguing as well. I also think that she was Sam's attempt of a take on talking about like the broken system
Yeah,
of like unfair wages here in America.
loved that part.
Because the thing is like that she used to be a teacher, and then she got sick or she got hurt, and then she got hooked onto drugs, and then she realized she could sell her drugs and make more money than she was being a teacher, and that's how she started like being a drugs dealer.
Yeah, well, because she realized
And
because she had to purchase from the drug dealers when she couldn't give her
yeah,
prescription anymore, and so then she was like, wait, I could be the dealer.
and so like it is this, she has a very caretaking motherly role like and personality to her too. She is a very compelling character. I'm excited to see what's going to happen. I do think that there was some unreliable narratorship, but I also think that there was some like, I just think that there was, we got to see a small peek behind the curtain. I'm excited to see more, hopefully at some point.
Hopefully, yes. So she was my favorite thing, and I just wanted to mention her just because, like, because we don't see very much of her, so we're not going to do like any kind of deep dive or large comment on her. But yeah, and I just love the way that the actress like delivers her lines. I find any kind of like unique delivery very compelling, and she has this very like monotone way of talking that I you hear it in real life, especially with people that have been kind of like downtrodden in a way of like they've been told they're not allowed to express their emotions, or you know they suppress them or things like that. So you hear this a lot in real life, but you almost never hear this sort of monotone way of speaking on TV. So whenever I hear something like that, it just feels it high verisimilitude, right? As we talked about last stream.
Yes.
So this character feels very high verisimilitude to me.
She just seems bored at everything, and that's so
Yeah.
cool because everything that's happening is like not boring.
No, it's like the opposite. Oh my
You have
God.
Rue, who is being forced to be like stripped down, strip search basically for recording devices or weapons before meeting her, being an underage girl in front of strange men, and then you have like this badass woman who's just sitting there and being like, I don't care.
Yeah,
I
for
don't
her it's
know,
just a business. Like it's just a
whatever.
business. You know,
Take her
she's
to the
just trying to survive.
bathroom. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really cool.
Yep. So that was my favorite thing from this season. Landon, what's your favorite thing from season 2 of Euphoria?
Well, my favorite thing in general is Lexie, but specifically the fact that Lexie gets her moment to shine, and she does the messy thing that I felt like I always wanted to do in high school, which was like talk shit about my friends, but in public forum in a disguise as a creative device, which was like literally her putting on this play called Our Life about the messy girls of Euphoria, herself being the main character. And it was just a powerful moment as like an introverted creative to watch someone do that, but also someone who has watched her character grow through the 2 seasons, because I do think she's one of the rare characters that does have a growth arc, that she is able to like actually put herself in the front seat, in the driver's seat, rather than continue to be a passive watcher at the side. And it's just a really cool, messy fucking moment. And the episodes are beautiful. Like they're some of the most artistically beautifully shot episodes.
Yeah, it's one of those things you know how in season 1 when that was really popular, people were saying things like making fun of like Euphoria as a high school because of the clothing people were wearing. Well, like I watched this and I was like, man, I want to go to the high school that has this kind of budget for their plays. Like, where is
Or
this high school? I
no,
want
like
it.
it's not even the budget that like is unbelievable for me, because it's super unbelievable, but it's also the idea that a student could write a play that then the high school would agree to not only put on but fund.
Yes, and think about the amount of hours people would have had to spend practicing that choreo because there's some really complicated
Oh my
choreo in these scenes. And like, I'm trying to imagine a high schooler being that dedicated to anything.
God.
Because I wasn't.
Neither was I. So it definitely was like my favorite thing, both for like story arc, climax, and also the way the episodes were shot. Just beautiful, beautiful thing. And I wish I could have done that in high school.
And I think the other cool thing about this play, and it was clear that this was like the main thing from season 2 that people actually enjoyed, because when you look at the discourse for Euphoria season 2, this is not the thing they're complaining about. Like the episode where they actually do the play, like, you know, it's kind of like a 2-part finale, right? So that next to last episode, people really like it. I also think that this play had a moment of introducing a new character that I wished we had gotten to know more, and I hope that we get to know more in season 2. But that little soft-spoken girl that's like Lexie's friend, she again so compelling. Like the way the actress delivered everything was just like very like, I want to know her. And we don't get to, unfortunately, but she gave me those feelings as well.
We don't know. They are greenlit for season 3, so maybe we'll see more of her.
Maybe. Yeah.
Or maybe she'll just be like one of the oh my god, I can't even remember her name. One of the other friends in the group that we never get any insight, and has like a couple of lines, like their cat Cassie, and Maddie's friend, who just she's a brunette. You kind of forget about her, but she's always
totally.
Kind of
I have no idea who you're talking. No idea who you're talking about. I guess I totally forgot about her.
Oh my god, I will have to bring her up. But anyway, there's like a character that we don't even know about that's part of the main cast.
Yeah, I don't know who you're talking about.
So yeah, but I will bring up her name so that we can do that. But I'll do that in a second. But yeah, that was my favorite thing.
I love it.
All right, so let's talk about the reaction.
Okay.
Because Euphoria season 2 just came out two months ago. It finished up early March. Mm-hmm. So it is still a little bit of a hot topic for fans. Mm-hmm. And so let's talk about it. What was the reaction?
Okay, so I got a lot to say here. So a lot of the takes were that season 2's writing seemed to slip. Right? It seemed to the viewer that the characters were worse, that the characters were less realistic, that episodes maybe had like extra padding in them that wasn't there before. But I would like to argue that there is plenty of poor character writing and lack of depth in season 1. Now, me, as somebody who waited until all the episodes were out and then binged them, I saw no real difference in season 2 as far as those takes go. Now, there are differences. We'll get to those in a moment. But I want to give you an example of like a season 1 poor character choice that I think just like totally slipped past people in season 1. And it's Rue and Cassie. So there's no connection between Rue and Cassie, despite Rue and Lexie being best friends like since childhood. And that makes no sense. Like Cassie would have some kind of take on what's going on with Rue. She would express some kind of either pity or animosity or something towards Rue. Like it would be like in a line somewhere, or it would be in the way that Cassie interacts with Rue. But instead, there is no connection. It's almost as if Cassie has no opinion on Rue and Rue has no opinion on Cassie, because the only opinions we get from Rue about Cassie is in her narration. They don't actually come out when Rue is interacting with Cassie. So that's just an example. But anybody that thinks that like in season 2, the character writing drastically slipped, go back and rewatch season 1. I don't think that's true. Now, there's reasons why you felt that way. Like, I don't want to discount those feelings, but the character writing is not the reason you're feeling that way. There's other reasons.
it was not the reading, it was not the writing, it was not the acting, it was the choices that were made. And we'll probably get into that a little bit more in depth when we talk about Cassie and we deep dive her as a character. But yeah, there was a whole bunch of anger towards what was decided to be spotlit this particular season. And we'll talk about like the themes of it, but I think what really people hated was that it stopped showing the romanticized version of all of these ugly things. Season 1 was all bright lights and daring and shock value and all of that. And season 2 certainly has that. Sorry, my cat is going crazy.
One of your kitties really hates this take, and they're saying, no, season 1 was fantastic and season 2 was garbage. What are you talking about, Landon?
Going insane.
I was there. I watched it too.
But no, but what it does is it shows all of the ugliness of what addiction looks like, what breaking up codependent and also getting into codependent relationships look like. It shows all of the ugly side of everything that was so hot and sexy and flashy and daring in the first season, even though literally none of it has changed. It's just how it's kind of portrayed on the show.
Yeah, and so I think there's more to it than that. I think there's more to it than that too. Like, yes, I do think season 2 got darker and grittier and more depressing, but I think there's more. Okay, so season 1 was incredibly popular. Everybody that was in the Euphoria fandom and during season 1, like, freaking loved it. They thought it was like the best thing since sliced bread. Awesome, whatever, right? And then there's this huge gap in time between season 1 and season 2, right? Because of the pandemic. So Euphoria has its long summer, as we like to talk about when we talk about this moment in the Harry Potter fandom, right? Euphoria has the same moment. And guess what happened in the Harry Potter fandom? The next book that came out after the long summer is kind of the worst book, and people a lot of times don't like it, but they don't like it for the wrong reasons. Going back and looking, that's not the reason it's bad. I think Euphoria suffers from something very, very similar, because the season 1 hype was so high that it was impossible in the amount of time they had with the obstacles that they had with the pandemic to strike that gold again. I think that the fandom made it, their expectations were just not possible to fulfill.
I 100% agree with that as well. But I also think that it wasn't even the expectations. I think that played a part of it. But I also think the people and the consumers who are watching this show are in a very different place mentally and emotionally than they were in season 1.
Yep.
With season 1, we were okay with a little bit of dark and gritty and no hope sort of situation. We were okay with that because we didn't have the weight of a pandemic going on for 2 years on our shoulders. Yep. And then all of a sudden, even though this has nothing to do with the pandemic, there is a level of hopelessness and an undertone of that I think is honest and true to the themes that they are hitting, but something that the majority of people don't want to face because they're facing it in their own lives. This doesn't take it a form of escapism, even though it is detached from our universe, even though there isn't a global pandemic happening, even though things are wildly different in this universe, there still is that heaviness to it that people picked up on.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. For the past 2 years, we have all been through trauma. And this is something that I have to repeat to myself to remind myself of it. And people behave differently when they've been through trauma. Now, I'm not saying that like every single one of us now has like a complex PTSD diagnosis since the pandemic. However, all of us have some symptoms because we've all been through various levels of trauma, like in a way that wasn't true before. Like, I don't think that it was true before to say that basically everybody in our society had at least a little bit of PTSD symptoms. But I think the past 2 years, like, it's just gone on so long that we all do now. We all have at least a little bit of complex PTSD symptoms that we are dealing with because of the pandemic. And so then to watch a show like this that you're so excited for, and it was so beautiful when you first watched it because of the lighting and the cinematography and the fashion and the characters, and then you watch it and you're like, oh, this is actually darkness and pain. Like, it's hard.
It's hard.
It's hard.
And
I think
I think on a writing standpoint, this was necessary. The crash is necessary for the storytelling. We couldn't have had another season where everyone was at the end of their arcs and was living in the best years of their life without the serious consequences. Like this season is the consequences of last season's actions. So
and
I
it
think
adds more things that should be consequences next season. We'll talk about that too.
absolutely. So I think that from a writing standpoint, this is necessary. But there's this really interesting theory going on TikTok right now, talking about how media changes when the consciousness of like society goes through something massive. So, for example, after 9/11, that's when the resurgence of superheroes and superhero movies with complex, not only like superheroes like Superman, but we're talking more like complex, like Iron Man of the not even an anti-hero, but a complex hero came through, because we as Americans had to settle with the fact that we were doing something as a terrible as a reaction, but that we were justified in that reaction. So our movies looked like that. Once the 2008 recession happened, zombie movies started taking hit, and it wasn't even just like zombie movies, it was survival zombie movies, or any sort of survival movies, because that's what the majority of society felt like. The first season of Euphoria happened before a societal shift, and the second season did not land in what that shift is now craving. And that's why I think a majority of people did not like it.
Yeah. And I think that we kind of like reinforced all of these forces in disliking, because I would be remiss if we didn't mention that Twitter was a big reason that people disliked the second season, because what was happening is everyone was getting together in these hashtags on Twitter, and we were all tweeting about it. And that is a problem for enjoyment, because the collective consciousness of like hundreds or a couple thousand people is always going to produce a better, more interesting story than one auteur, which Euphoria is an auteur media. It is written by Sam, it is directed by Sam. This is Sam Levinson's soul, and really not too many others. Like, he doesn't do a lot of collaboration. I mean, there is collaborative elements on the music. I know the in-between episodes, the actress that plays Jules collaborated a lot on it, but overall, Euphoria is an auteur piece of media. We are looking at Sam's artistic vision, period, kind of, as much as a TV show can be, because there's certain, you can't do everything by yourself. You need actors and stuff like that. But as much as auteur is possible, Euphoria is auteur media. So of course you get on Twitter with hundreds of people or like a couple thousand people, and you're going to come up with better ideas than Levinson did, because Levinson is one dude. Yeah. He's one dude.
Well, it's very similar to, I mean, obviously there's a big difference between the fandoms, but it's very similar to the Harry Potter fanon and the Harry Potter canon.
Yes.
Is because fanon is so much better and more well universally liked and accepted because it is 1,000 million people putting in their thoughts, feelings, and opinions into it that then like resonate with a larger group of people than one person creating a world and a protagonist. I think that it's important to say, because even though like we'll talk about whether it resonated or not, I loved season 2. I thought season 2 was beautiful. I connected to it in an incredibly personal way, and honestly, I connected to it far more than I connected to season 1. For me, I loved the shock value and everything artistic about season 1. I loved the story of season 2. I know that I am in the minority. There are certainly things that could have been changed, but for me, I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I can't really say I had strongly different feelings about season 2 versus season 1, but I'll talk about that in my reaction. Also, welcome in, Blue. Thank you so much for coming in today. And yes, let's keep it gay. I was this close to feeling bothered enough to watch episode 1 of Euphoria. Blue, it is worth watching. Despite all the hate season 2 got, I do think it's worth watching. Then I remembered there's a lot of dick. There's a lot of dick in season 2 as well. So yeah, the reaction to season 2 I think was strong for all of the reasons that we have talked about, but I do think ultimately it was unfair. So we'd like to next talk about what season 2 really was and why we thought it was still like good and just as good as season 1, just different.
Yeah. Sam really, instead of coming with different story arcs and different themes and asking the question, what makes you worthy for each character, what I feel Sam did for this particular season was hyper focus on 2 issues that are incredibly intertwined. And at the end, and in the end, have a similar background for where they come from, which is dependency, whether that be on codependency with a person or addiction on a drug or some sort of behavior. And at the end of the day, that's what I think season 2 was about, was really just a commentary on this idea of loving something more than you love yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And so, like, this was kind of my take on it. Season 1, Sam Levinson realized, oh, I've got a popular show. I've hit gold. And you know what happens to a creator when they realize they've hit gold and they get season 2? I can write what I want now. And what Sam wants, what Sam needs, is to write about addiction. That's his real experience. So there was a couple of things behind the scenes that happened with Kat, but I don't think it was just the argument that Kat's actress had with Sam Levinson, because there's barely any Jules in this too. And if you think about the fandom, people's favorite characters were Jules and Kat and Maddie. And who doesn't have much to do in season 2? Jules and Kat and Maddie. Okay? Season 2 is really about what's going on in Rue's family and what's going on in Lexie and Cassie's family. And those are the 2 families that the characters deal a lot with codependency and addiction. And that's what Sam wanted to talk about. He wanted to talk about codependency and addiction.
And I also wanted to point out that Kat's the reason why Kat was cut is because the actress did not want to do didn't want to do a story arc on eating disorders. And by the way, eating disorder is again rooted in the same sort of idea of addiction and dependency. So it would have been that same story with a different character, which is obviously the theme that he was going for, and understandably that next leap. I'm very glad that the actress said no, because it was terrible that he wanted to do it with the fat actress. But no,
he should have picked somebody else. Like, he could have.
He's still
and it's really unfortunate because, well, Sam Levinson only knows what Levinson knows. And so probably by the time that it was brought to his attention, I'm assuming that it was too late, and which is why it devolved into just a fight between him and the actress instead of rewrites. So it's very unfortunate that he had a big blind spot. But I agree. I understand why the other storyline he wanted to do was an eating disorder. He gave it to the wrong character.
But like, it sucks because he set it up so perfectly with Cassie. He set it up so incredibly perfect with Cassie, and maybe that would have been too much for Cassie.
I think true. I think it's too much.
Was already there, and then could have very easily written in the fact that Cassie already has an eating disorder, and like, so then if some other character had come up and been like, "I'm really struggling with this," Cassie could have just been like, "That's normal to struggle with," which is also an incredibly normal experience with somebody who has an eating disorder, to come across other people who don't think it's a big deal. That would have been an interesting and compelling story. But anyway, he decided not to do that.
Right. I mean, and you can only do so much, because even though Euphoria is a very like auteur piece of television, Sam can't act every part himself. So, he is dependent on the opinions, at least somewhat, of his actors. And and that is what it is.
And I think Kat made the right choice, and because of every single reason. But I think that there could have been if he wanted to add it, he could have. It didn't have to be the fat character, and that's basically what I was just trying to say.
No, I think he could have, but I do think if he would have given it to Cassie, it would have been too much for her, which we'll talk about Cassie in a little bit. And then I think that because we're so hyper focused on the issues of codependency and addiction, what happens in season 2 is it lacks verisimilitude for a lot of people, because if you've not had to deal with somebody that is in an addiction, either to a substance or to another person or to a behavior or whatever, then you're not going to understand it, and it's just going to feel like so down. Because this is the thing about addiction: when people are so frustrated with, like, why does Rue keep screwing up in the same ways over and over, and it's like, because that's what addicts do. They promise you they'll never do it again, and then they do it a fucking again. And that's how it is. Like, loving an addict is really hard. That's why a lot of addicts end up alone, or end up, homeless, or in these dire situations, because they live like Rue lives, and most people can't handle that for obvious reasons.
Or yeah, I mean, especially with addiction as Rue has it. And I think that also where the show, because this is Sam's story, and because Sam is choosing to display addiction in a certain way and didn't really keep up the other avenues in which he could have displayed addiction, it turned people off who do not resonate with this form of addiction. Because
Yeah.
I think the sad truth is that a lot of people here in the United States know an addict or are close to an addict in some way or regard. It's just how that addiction is portrayed and the level of functioning that goes with that addiction is a huge spectrum. Is
Yes.
an
True.
incredibly large spectrum. Functioning alcoholics and functioning addicts exist, and you would never be able to tell who they are. That's why, like, the 90s Coke bust was such a big deal, because it was like, yeah, these execs are spending millions of dollars on cocaine and they're living their best life, doing what they're supposed to do, but all of them are addicts. That sort of like, that is not the portrayal that is going for. So the way that addiction is portrayed in this is really uncomfortable for a lot of people, because that's not what addiction looks like in their life.
Yeah.
And the themes that exist in these stories, people are not necessarily ready or want to face.
Yeah. Well, it's
To
true,
some
because
extent.
Rue doesn't have a lot of money. She doesn't have a lot of power. She's just a kid. She doesn't have a lot of people enabling her. Like, throughout season 2, she has Elliot enabling her, but it doesn't take him very long to realize that he doesn't want to do that anymore. Like, he enables her for a couple of months and then he drops it like a hot potato. And so, that's not very glamorous. That's not very fun. That's not very pretty. So yeah, absolutely.
And it's not supposed to be. Like, I think that there is a beauty in the story that is being told, but I think that that's also what turned a lot of people off.
Yes.
Is that because addiction is being portrayed only in this way, this is the way that it's being portrayed, and if it does not resonate with you, or it is something that makes you uncomfortable, you're not going to want to watch it for escapism.
Mm-hmm. So low
Right?
verisimilitude for
Yes.
season 2, and that's not. And so I hope that it makes sense by now that we don't believe that has anything to do with the writing, because there's poor writing in season 1 about as much as there is in season 2, but it's just the range of topics has narrowed so much in season 2 that there's not a lot to grab onto. So if you don't identify with these things, then season 2 is not for you. You're not going to care.
If you don't identify with these things and you also feel incredibly protective of these characters that are then making poor choices that in a way that doesn't resonate with you, you're going to be even angrier. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's a huge thing with, like, away from the addiction, is the codependency aspect. We see several relationships in this season that borderline on incredibly codependent, unhealthily codependent, and also just have codependent underlines. And people, and it's not glamorized. A lot of codependent relationships are glamorized in Hollywood. A lot of love stories that are completely codependent are glamorized. This doesn't do that. And anybody who sat there and was like, but they're in love, they're supposed to love each other, I ship it, this is amazing, and because it's not being, like, surrounded in heavenly light, people are like not connecting to it the way that they used to, and they're feeling very protective of those. And I think that that's a huge thing with, like, Rue and Jules' relationship. Why people didn't particularly care for it as much this season is because it wasn't glamorized like it was in the first one.
Yeah, it was very sad. It was very sad this season, what Rue and Jules went through. If you're rooting for them, yeah, it was very sad.
very sad, but also very real.
Yeah.
Like incredibly real. And again, it's that like we just want to escape right now. Why are we being shoved by what is real?
Yeah. Bad timing season 2 of Euphoria. You should have not come out with a pandemic, but oh well, this is what happened. So there's another question in regards to Euphoria that I have had since I began watching it in season 1. And that is, why do we have a narrator? And why is it Rue? Okay, so there's several answers proposed to us in the show, but before we get into those answers of why we think that Rue was chosen as the narrator, I just want to highlight this because it's another point where I think like the character writing is not as good as it could have been. So Sam is right. Sam was an addict when he was a kid, right? And so he can see things through Rue's eyes very well. But if you actually watch what Rue does and the way Rue explains things, she's not very close with most of these characters. She's very close with Lexie, but she kind of ignores Cassie, Lexie's sister, and Cassie would have been her connection to to Kat and to Maddie, right? You've got Jules, who Rue is definitely connected to, and Jules is pretty close friends with Kat, but they never three hang out together, right? So, and Rue doesn't have any opinions on real connection with Nate, right? So she has all these opinions on people that she doesn't really interact with like at all. She just kind of like makes stuff up about them, or that's the conclusion that we have to come to based on what we're shown in the show. We're not really given good evidence for any other possible conclusion. And the whole time I'm asking, why Rue, why Rue, why Rue? And in season 2, we get Lexie as a possible narrator. And let me just say, if Lexie was the narrator since season 1, I just feel like that would have been a much stronger choice. Now, that would not probably be something that Sam Levinson would do because that's not what he wants to talk about, as we just discussed. He wants to talk about codependency and addiction. And if we're watching it through the quote unquote observer, Lexie's eyes, then that's not really what the story's about. Then the story does become more of what season 1 was, which was an ensemble cast dealing with lots of different issues. But that's never what Sam wanted to write. And I had no idea when I was watching season 1 that that was the case. But you figure it out in season 2. Oh, it's because Sam doesn't want to write an ensemble cast about lots of different issues. He wants to write about addiction and codependency. So let's then talk about why Rue as it's presented in the show.
Which, by the way, having a show that is about addiction and codependency, totally okay. Like wanting to create that art, 100% fine. It just felt like very much like a bait and switch, and that's the biggest issue.
Yes,
it's not that like he shouldn't tell these stories. I 100% think these stories should be told. I just think that if he expected the audience to be on board, he switched it up.
And yeah, he should have been doing that since season 1, but he didn't. Yeah. Season 1 was an ensemble cast about lots of issues. It was not about addiction and codependency exclusively, the way season 2 was. Exactly. So why Rue? So Landon, we've got a couple points here that I know that that you talked to me about. So why are we presented in the show that it's Rue?
So there's a lot of theories on this, and I like the idea of Rue. Well, first of all, she is projected as the all-knowing source. And that is because in her state of what she is in, she can kind of be a fly on the wall, or at least she tries to be.
She believes she is, I think is what is really going on.
And she believes she is. And I think as we see the progress of season 2, it's less like that. And I also think that's why we see, like, you can also tie in why we see less of other characters is because Rue knows less. Mm-hmm. But it is this idea of being like, hey, if you are stoned out of your fucking mind on the couch, and no one's talking to you, but you're still there and you're catching all of this stuff. And it's like that idea of like the fly, the person who constantly knows all. Yeah. And this particular reason is why Rue. Well, because Rue is an incredibly empathetic and broken character who doesn't put herself in the center of her, who doesn't put herself in the center of her story purposefully. She does because she's an addict. And so and obviously we are all the centers of our own story. But when when come up with the question of like why Rue and not Lexie, it's because Lexie would never be willing to admit that she is the overseer of everybody until later this season. So whereas Rue sits there and goes, yeah, I know all.
And she has this idea that she knows all, and I think it's very common. Like if I think about who in my life Rue reminds me the most of, this particular person was also much like Rue in the sense that they thought they were the smartest, most observant, most correct person in the room at all times. And this person that I'm referring to has thought this since childhood and continues to think this in adulthood. And so like when I think about like, oh, Sam really wanted to talk about it from Rue's perspective because that's the perspective he identifies with, being a drug addict since a teenager, it's like, yeah, that's kind of what they're like. It's kind of what they're like. It's true.
But I also think that this is necessary in the show, right? Because even though it is an ensemble cast in the first season, you needed someone to anchor to.
Yeah.
And if you think of any show that is ensemble, there is always a main protagonist. The way humans develop and listen to stories is that they connect to the person that the story is about. So there needed to be a main character, a protagonist from the very beginning. And our protagonist is morally gray in a lot of things that we as a whole in society would consider good.
Yes.
So you needed to connect to her in a hyper fast way, and a way that showed you the empathy that you needed to have for this character. And so how they did that is they made her the character that is the voiceover for everybody.
Yep.
And that was a necessary part of her story. And that was the necessary part for us being able to connect to this world as watchers and also connect to this incredibly complex character.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that season 2 couldn't have been what it was at all without Rue being the main character. But there's more to why Rue than that. There is also regret in the way that she sees her actions when she's retelling them. I think you can tell this in a lot of the parts, especially that she lies about, where you see like that she changes the story to make it cooler or more dramatic or more sympathetic to her than it probably was in reality.
And I think that, again, this is the empathy forward storytelling, because Sam's purpose of this is to give people who would be uncomfortable with this type of addict a connection to this type of addiction. And being able to connect the dots and being able to pull you in and love this character and continue to love this character through all of the ugly. And in order to do that, you have to make this character empathizable for the people who struggle with empathy in morally gray situations. How do you do that? Regret. Recognizing that this character is making mistakes. And so Rue never really admits to making a mistake, ever. Because that's, again, part of her story of being an addict, is that she thinks she is fine until it is very clear to everyone around her that she is not.
Till it's way too late, right?
Yes. And that's, again, addiction. But being able to paint these moments of being in her narrative voice while we are observing other people's stories and even like other people's perspectives gives us, and having regret for that gives us that emotional connection to tie on to. Because if we were in Rue's mind with just hearing how great she thought she was doing, we wouldn't be able to emotionally connect to that character, because we'd be like, you're an asshole. How do you not see that your sister is obviously not okay right now? How do you not see that you are, being a shitty girlfriend to your girlfriend? X, Y, and Z. If we existed in that head, we would lose that empathy. So having that regret is necessary to the storytelling.
Absolutely. Because if we think of it, there's like two contrasting moments that occur kind of close to each other, right? So there's the big fight that Rue is having with her mom because they realize that she's back on drugs because Elliot and Jules have gone and tattled on her, right? And it culminates in this argument with Gia, and Gia becomes very frightened of Rue and of the way her mom is reacting to Rue. And you can see as the fight progresses how much this is hurting Rue to see how she's affecting Gia, and she ends up leaving the house, right? Which seems like great choice. I mean, I know it's running away and they have to go find her, but at least that way Gia can be removed from the situation because she's hurting her so much, right? But then she gets to Lexie's house, and what's the first thing that she kind of does when she gets there? Like she sits down and basically just calls out Cassie about, screwing with Nate, and it's like, Rue, that was not your place. Like, shut up, calm down. Like, why are you taking pot shots at Cassie? So there's like these two
to get out of a situation, right?
Bingo.
Like...
Yes. So there's these two actions that she does that are motivated by the same thing, but one is kind of like understandable and positive and you can get it, and then the other one is just like, Rue, shut the fuck up. What is wrong with you?
On a writing standpoint, that is the thing that we had been waiting for.
Yes.
All season, because it even gave us, like, even though we hated it, most people at that point in time were not rooting for Cassie. Cassie had lost most of the love from the fandom from that point. So a lot of people liked what Rue did in both of these situations. They love that she gave space to Gia, and they also love that she gave the opportunity for Cassie to get what was coming to her.
We'll talk about that when we get to the Cassie slide. I have so many.
Right. There's so many takes on that. But again, connection with that audience. That is Sam has said that so many times. He talks about that this is to give an insight into a level of empathy for addicts. And that is the goal. So everything he does is through that lens, and that's part of it. But it shows us the unreliable narrator sort of perspective with everything.
And then there's one other thing in regards to why Rue, right? And that is that this entire show is told in past tense. So from season 1, what we're meant to understand is this is a Rue that is no longer in high school, that is telling us about what high school was like for her.
And I actually think that lead is buried a little bit, because when we first start hearing Rue's narration, everything is in the past tense from Rue's in high school's perspective, because we're talking about the history of these characters. So in the first season, it isn't that clear that this is a post-high school Rue because of how the narration takes place.
Yeah.
When the past tense is most obvious, it is in the past tense. However, in this season, it becomes more and more clear that everything is in the past tense. And none more so than when she finally starts talking about things that we don't get to see on the show in the final minute, where she sits there and says that she was sober for the rest of the school year and through most of that summer. And it's like, okay, we're not seeing that. So now we know that Rue is telling this story from a future version of herself. And what the fuck does that mean for Rue?
Yeah, it's more of that bait and switch. It's more of that bait and switch where stuff was not made clear in season 1, and the only way that you can know is by, looking at it now. And it really does feel like that this season 2 is the show that Sam Levinson wanted to write all along. But he wrote season 1 because this would not be popular the way that season 1 was.
Nope, this would not be popular.
Yeah.
It would have been a beautiful story, but it wouldn't have been popular.
Unfortunately, no.
And it wasn't popular. That's the thing too, is that even though they've already been greenlit and they're already going to shoot, and there's no way it's going to get canceled, and they got enough viewers and enough people talking about it that HBO is still making a shit ton of money, and there are still fans loyal to this.
Yeah.
There's a reason why the fandom fell out of love with it.
Yeah, but negative engagement is still engagement. So HBO doesn't care if all the tweets are bitching. They don't care. Yeah. They know how many people watched it, and they know how many people talked about it. That's all they care about.
Yeah, that's why they still did Game of Thrones for the last 2 seasons.
Right. But
hey, another series that we could break down at some point.
I might this might ruin my heart. I don't know. We'd have to think about it.
But there's a new series coming out anyway. No, so it is that bait and switch, but it also, I think, it makes us wonder, because it gives there are there are obviously two possible answers, right? Why Rue would be telling this story. Rue is telling the story because she is going through her 12th step of realizing all the things that she has done wrong, forgiving herself, realizing her growth, that she is making her amends, that she's doing the steps of a program in which that she will be sober and will be happy and there is hope for that future, or that she is looking back on her life after she has died.
Oh, I don't know which. I was imagining it from her 12th step. I'm not gonna lie. That's where I've been imagining it for season 2.
And I've been imagining it since the fact that she died. And
that's possible.
There wasn't this. And I'm hoping that Sam will tell the story because his story is successful. But I also think the more impactful one would be the one where she dies.
Girl, you just like tragedy. Impactful. You just like tragedy.
Who? I don't know. I think on a grand scheme of things, he most likely will do it from the 12th step, which would be a beautiful story. But I think that there is a level of like, if we're making a comment about addicts and what it means to be an addict and seeing everyone give up on Rue, I mean, that is a story. And
that happens.
And it would affect people, and it would make people question their own actions with the people in their lives.
Yes, it would.
Whereas if she overcame the addiction and everything lived happily ever after, it wouldn't make people question as much. And so it really is, I guess, Sam's purpose is he wanting to tell a story of overcoming and forgiveness more than he is going to want to make people question.
I don't know. We'll find out, because there is going to be a season 3, but we'll see how long it goes. We'll see how long this goes. You know what I'm saying?
So, all right. Talked about some heavy stuff. Let's get into an Audible recommendation.
Yes. Okay, you guys. So here we go. You can support our channel by going and subscribing to a 30-day free trial of Audible at www.audibletrial.com/interstagewindow. I hope you do, because I love audiobooks. I don't think it would be possible for us to produce this show without audiobooks for me. I love being able to listen while I'm doing chores. I love being able to listen while I'm doing any kind of like tedious work around the office, stuff like that. And today, of course, as usual, Landon has a recommendation for us. So Landon, what book are you recommending for Audible?
I'm recommending a book with an unreliable narrator and a small bit of tragedy and also addiction, and also a pretentiousness that will remind you of the 2012 Tumblrs. And that is the book Looking for Alaska by John Green. An oldie, a goodie, a classic, but an incredibly relevant book about codependency, about addiction, about not recognizing a person for who they are and who you wish they would be, and overall a really good read. So 100% check it out at audibletrial.com/interstagewindow. It's by John Green. Everyone's loved it. If you haven't read this book, you're missing out. Don't watch the TV show. It's trash.
I was wondering if you were going to mention that, because nobody liked the TV show. Nobody.
No, it was so bad. But incredibly good book. And you know what? Maybe Karen will be listening to that book at some point.
Maybe. We have talked briefly about possibly doing some John Green episodes. So if y'all are interested in seeing that, let me know what John Green books you would like us to most cover. It would be very interesting, because I am somebody that has a lot of mixed feelings about John Green and his books. So I know I would have a lot of thoughts.
Many thoughts. Good series. There are just so many books for us to read, though.
That's
all
true.
Right. Shall we get into our character deep dives?
Yes. Okay. So last time we asked an overall question of what makes you worthy, and we talked a lot about how that question related to different characters. Now, in this season, there is no overall question. At least when I watched it, I could not find one. I really do feel like it was just about how certain characters are reacting to codependency and addiction. So instead, we're going to do some character deep dives on some of the characters that got really heavily highlighted in season 2 that I think relate most to the themes of codependency and addiction. So First, of course, we have to talk about Rue. So I know we talked about Rue last time, but she's the protagonist, so we got to talk about her again. And we had more thoughts on Rue that did not fit into the first episode, right, Landon? Like, there was a
Oh my
lot.
gosh.
She's a protagonist, so there's a lot of things. So we're going to talk about a couple of things that we didn't get to talk about with Rue last episode.
Perfect. Yeah, and I think one of the things that we didn't talk about last time, because we were focusing on season 1, is the fall of Rue. Is the tipping point in which her addiction becomes unmanageable for herself. And she starts making the decisions that we are, as an audience and as a viewer, just sitting there and being like, why do you keep making these same decisions and doing the addict thing? Which is an unfortunate reality of loving an addict.
Yep.
And so this is Zendaya's acting in this season, to me, is beautiful. She has a level of like desperation and sadness, and also like you can see Rue's mind working behind her eyes as she's trying to figure out, because I think Rue is very smart, as she's trying to figure out how to get out of a situation that she has put herself in. While also having a goal, like arguing with that idea of, is getting myself out of this situation, or is getting the thing that I want, which is mostly drugs, more important, and grappling with that, like behind the eyes. I think Zendaya does a brilliant job with that.
I agree, because when I watched season 1, I remember thinking, like, Zendaya's the weakest actress in this. Like, I don't get it. Like, why her? I felt like she was just cast because she was a big name that was coming up in the world, and like, you know, they saw that and they were like, Zendaya's going to be special, so we're going to cast her, right? And she's going to be our lead. Like, that's what it seemed like to me. But I totally disagree with my own take, because in season 2, like, Zendaya is really given a chance to shine, and I think the problem is that, like, for whatever reason, Zendaya doesn't play happy very well. or like the manic parts of season 1 I think are very weak, but in season 2 there's so many moments where she is either angry or depressed, and I think Zendaya sells those emotions excellently. Like the scene, like I have a shot in here in the scene with the Jolly Rancher, like that scene is so compelling. She is so good in the way that she like constantly fiddles with it, in the way that she like swats the water away, like in the way that she refuses help. I watched that and I was like, damn, that's it. That's it. That's what that's like.
Yep. I also think I also think on top of that, she also plays manipulator really well.
Yeah.
Danced along the line in season 1, but really deep dived into it in season 2, like with the whole idea of being like, the way to get away with drugs is telling people that you are on drugs.
Yeah, she's like, have a backup drug, gaslight everybody, lie constantly, you know.
She's high out of her mind, and she's dancing in the kitchen, and Gia's sitting there and being like, are you fucking high? She's like, it's just weed. Like, beautifully acted scene. And also I think that it is a unbelievable story of watching her when she is found out, when her mom tells her that she knows she's on drugs, and watching Zendaya really embrace the character of going from like denial, gaslighting, to betrayal, to anger, to desperation, to acceptance and to bargaining, to like went through all the 7 stages, right? And then finally continued that cycle later. I think it was a beautiful scene.
Yep. So her acting is way better in season 2, but I think it's just because Zendaya has a very specific emotional range. And in season 2, that's what it is.
Yeah, and maybe I'm a little protective over Zendaya because I love her, but also I think that she's a Disney kid, so I think that she was probably trained for happy acting one way, and then it was like, no man, we gotta do this the right way. Let's actually let me show
Lady
emotion that isn't just like fake. Come on, oh lady, cutie. Come on, lady. So no, I think Zendaya is a talented incredibly talented person. And that Rue's arc of just slowly treading downhill.
Like her arc is a circle, right?
Yeah, well, it is a circle, but also like she is on a deep nosedive, and then she just continues to go that direction, and it's just very interesting to see, because even in the end, like, she doesn't end. It's not a happy ending for Rue at all this season. There is no there is hope maybe, but there is no like happiness there. It's acceptance.
Yeah. Oh, lady, please don't. Not to the microphone. Thank you.
And it is a circle. She is a circle until she breaks that cycle, which we walk away with thinking that she probably doesn't.
Yeah, even though she says she was sober for the rest of the school year and the rest of the summer, okay, well, what about the next year? Like, there's more to life than
like,
that, right?
Yeah, and I think that that's like giving that hint of being like, I was sober for the rest of that school year. That's it.
And then
that's all I can promise.
And then yeah, so we'll see next season. But it's not, there's another thing in regards to Rue that we didn't get to mention last time, and this is something that's I think true for both seasons. The writing of Euphoria, so this is another way in which like the character writing has always been a little bit like lax, is race is totally removed from Euphoria, right? Like, we have Black characters, but there is nothing Black about them. So I'll give you an example. With Rue, it's really clear because as you're watching, I mean, I live in the Southeast, right? So this is like my context of what I know about the Black culture, right? Where's Rue's family? Why is there no like grandma or aunt or uncle coming and being like, I got this, I'll take Rue off your hands, or you deal with Rue, I'll take Gia so that she doesn't have to deal with this, or somebody like moving in with them to help with the girls, or something. Like, there, it's almost like once the father died, they lost connection with their family, but that's just not realistic. And it's not realistic. Like, maybe it's realistic to like California, but it's definitely not realistic to Black culture. And I really struggled with it as a Southerner, even like not racially, but it's just a good example of where like race isn't even considered. Race isn't even considered because Rue being who she is, her family would come to help. They'd either come to help her or her mom or Gia or something. Like, there would be a dissension of aunties, right?
And it might not even be like blood related, but like that's the thing about like, it is very obvious that Rue, who is a character of color, was written by a white man.
Yeah.
Because white Americans typically do not have the sense of community. And I should say white Americans that have lived here long enough that they aren't directly involved in
all the typical qualifiers. Like, I mean, you guys know what we're saying, right? Like, I don't think we have to like, explain it down to the minutia detail.
No, because immigrant families are part of that. But that community aspect of like, you are raised by a neighborhood, and that is incredibly important in Black culture, in Latinx culture, in any culture besides white. And so the idea that isn't even talked about or explained, it's not like it's never a choice. Like, there never once crosses mom's mind, because like there are so many ways to handle this of like sitting there and being like, oh, well, maybe mom and dad moved far away from their community. Why didn't they never move back? Like, that would be something that mom would 100% do. Or why didn't anyone come in and move in with them? This is just untrue to Black culture.
Yeah, or like maybe it would have been a situation where just Rue moved away or just Gia moved away, because obviously dealing with both Rue and Gia due to Rue's addiction was way more than their mom could handle, you know. And it just doesn't make sense. And it's not just Rue. So I don't want to just like harp on that for the points. I want to mention another example where I think like race was totally removed from Euphoria. So there's a part in season 1 where it's Maddie's episode, and they're talking about Maddie being like a pageant queen, right? Like she does these pageants, and she has a line where she's like, "It doesn't matter if you're white, it matters, blah blah blah." And I was like, I like paused. I was like, what the what? What pageants have you been to, my friend?
That does matter.
And it was just another moment where like race was so removed from the reality of that situation. It's like, Sam, you clearly know nothing about pageants. You clearly know nothing about how this affects women, and you know nothing about race. You know, like, I don't know where Sam grew up. The show takes place in California. But there are elements like that where it becomes very obvious that it was written by like that type of white man, right?
Yeah.
That he does not know certain things, and he puts things in there that are just like that where it makes my brain like record scratch like what?
Again, not uncommon. This is incredibly common for people who are white, who are trying to write more diversely. The reality is that you can't, as hard as you want and as much work as you want to put into trying to be aware, there are nuances that as a white person you're just gonna miss.
Mm-hmm.
Which is also why it's important to work with a team if you are going to do it, but that's fine. He didn't, and that's okay. But that is where a lot of the criticism of people from communities of color that are criticizing the show come from, is especially like, and I know that the beauty pageant thing was a big one for season 1, but especially for Rue's situation.
Yeah. I mean, in season 2, her mom tries to get her back into rehab, and it just doesn't work out, right? Like she's begging and begging and begging,
she's
like
asking for help. She's not afraid to do that.
Yeah, she's not afraid to do that. So it's very baffling to me why it never occurs to her to call like a family friend or like a sibling of hers, or, you know, her own parents, and I know their father passed away, but you know, maybe she doesn't have a lot of family. Why not call his parents or his siblings or whatever? Like, there would be somebody besides doctors.
And people would do it. Like, that's the part of that it wouldn't be like just asking and then refusing. People would drop everything to do it, because that's how communities like that work.
Yeah, and the truth is, like, even in white culture, I think what kind of holds us back in this regard, and why this feels very white, is because we're kind of proud. Okay, we're kind of proud, and we want to handle it ourselves. That is a very white thing. So it's not that like asking gets you told no. Like, white people want to help each other out too. But like, my God, we don't want to ask. We don't want to ask because it means we couldn't handle it, and we're being children and not adults. And
we don't want to inconvenience anybody else. Like, bitch, what is for?
Yeah. But that's not true of other cultures. It's not true of other cultures that they're going to be scared to ask, you know, it's very white to show her only asking doctors for help. Very white.
Very white. But overall, I think, and I also think for this season, watching Rue crash was an honor. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a protagonist be so, like, have to be so vulnerable in a TV show like this before.
I know, I totally agree. And that's why I still, like, I read all the hate for season 2, and I'm like, where is this coming from? Because to me, what Rue goes through is so recognizable that it just, like, it strikes me in my heart. And so, but I guess, like, if I had not had some of those experiences that I have had, then maybe I wouldn't feel that way. I don't know, but like, to me, season 2 has very similar verisimilitude to season 1. It's just for a different character. You know, is where I really highly connected with Kat and Jules in season 1. Season 2 made me connect with Rue in a way that season 1 didn't. I really didn't connect that much with Rue in season 1. I didn't identify with her. You know, she was doing her thing, but like, it didn't feel real to me. But season 2 Rue feels real to me.
It is. And I think that's probably why people were also uncomfortable with it.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Fezco.
So Fezco is in both season 1 and season 2. Brilliant character. That is basically, he is Rue's drug dealer. And that is basically how he's presented in the beginning of season 1, and that's how he kind of stays throughout the narrative. Is he's very backseat. He's there to help out Rue. He very much sees her as a younger sister. He wants to protect her, but this is also the world that he grew up with and in, and he doesn't necessarily know more than that. He doesn't want to necessarily know more than the world that he is in. And so he has a very firm perspective, and in season 2 we get to understand that a little bit more.
Oh my gosh, how much did you love getting to know Fezco's grandma? That was one of my favorite flashbacks. That was one of my favorite flashback sequences in this season, was Fezco's grandma. I thought, like, she is a badass and I love her.
No, I also think explaining, because the thing with Fezco is kind of, he has some, I don't even know what to say it. He has brain damage. So he's a slow processor, and he struggles a lot with communicating, I think, how he feels. You see the character feel things, but his processing is unique. And it's interesting to see that, like, instead of like it being just about the drugs, because I think that in season 1 we're all kind of assumed that he's just stoned out of his fucking mind the whole time.
Yeah, because we don't really know anything about him, so that's all we're given.
About him, that you find out that no, he was like hit in the head with a metal bat and had a huge, massive concussion, and that he has brain trauma.
Yeah,
and that process is hard for him, and he is still incredibly intelligent, and wise, but because of that brain damage, he needs extra time processing and reacting to things. And so being able to see that side of him in this particular light was awesome.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love that it wasn't just drugs frying his brain. Like, I loved the inclusion of that it was literally like an injury that he faced, which is why he talks and acts like he does.
Yeah. Loved it. Also really appreciate, because like there was this stereotype in the first season that I was a little like meh about the fact that it was like the guy appeared dumb, and he appeared, you know, stoned out of his mind, and he appeared not caring, and that he did obviously emotionally care, but there was no like thought for his actions or anything like that he was just an incredibly like unaware person. And I hated the stereotype of being like, okay, for how he was portrayed, the dumb kid ends up growing up and dealing drugs and doing drugs, and that it's like this idea of, if you're not intelligent, you can't go anywhere in life. And that was kind of what it felt like it was being pushed in the first season. And then we find out how incredibly intelligent Fezco is. Like but he just is the form of processing, that he has his ways. And it is, again, instead of him just being like a kid who struggled in school, who maybe had a learning disability or something, he's not that. And if he was, that would have been fine too, but that it like was an accident that made it so that this is how he acts.
And it's great because in season 1, the only glimpse we really get into his intelligence is in the very beginning, when Rue says that Fezco isn't normally that insightful, but he says something to her about Jules. Like, he had seen Jules, and he goes, I saw this Sailor Moon looking girl, and I think y'all two gonna be friends. And Rue's comment on that is like, Fezco's usually not very insightful, but he was totally right in this, or something like that, right? Yeah. I don't remember the exact line. And that's the only glimpse we really get into his character. And I just love that season 2 leaned more into that as Fezco's character, because that was like the moment where I thought like, Fezco's kind of cool. But then we kind of just forget about him for the rest of season 1. He doesn't really do anything but be dumb and deal drugs.
and take care of Rue. But I feel like in season 2, we see what I love about Fezco in season 2, especially, is not only his development, but also like the idea that we do see him process this morality. this idea of like, how can he care about Rue and see how drugs is making what drugs is doing to her, and also still deal her drugs, which he doesn't in season 2, but it kind of do that thing, and recognizing that, oh, he was raised with a code, that he was raised in this life, that he came from a really bad situation. He was not a rich from a rich family growing up. He struggled and worked and made his money, and his grandma had to make the money, and that they did that selling drugs. And the idea of like that it was instilled in him, and so he has this code, he has this thought process that a lot of people have. It just so happens to be about drugs.
Yep. And I think it's not just Rue that you see it with. Like, he tries his darndest to raise what is kind of like his little brother, not blood related. We find out more details on that in season 2. And he tries so hard to raise his little brother to like be smart and still be able to make a living and not get so dangerous. And unfortunately, his brother just doesn't really take to it, and it ends in kind of like the super tragic way at the end of season 2. But you see like so many elements where Fezco is trying so hard, where he's just like, no, dude, like, don't go that far. Like, oh my gosh, you know, like he is smart and he knows when to hold back, but unfortunately it doesn't have the ability to impart that onto the people he cares about, which is mostly what we see as Rue as well as his little brother.
Well, and I also think that it takes, we get to see Fezco meet a person who finally understands him.
Yeah,
like we get to see him and Lexie, who are seemingly two incredibly different people, but who are both watchers in the world and like processors of their own unique ways, being able to come together and see that like what Rue said about Fezco in the beginning is a complete lie. Fezco is incredibly insightful.
Yeah.
He understands how people work and how they work with each other. It's just that he kind of stays out of it. That he's like, not my circus, not my monkey sort of deal.
Yeah, people are like, I don't get Fezco and Lexie. I don't know what show y'all are watching, because they're literally the same character. It's just one is, you know, one's a drug dealer and one is still in high school. But like the way they mentally process things, like it's the same. It's the same.
Well, and they were also raised incredibly different. Lexie didn't have the expectation put upon her to financially raise or financially contribute to the house. She had to emotionally contribute to the house. Right. Whereas Fezco had to be a part of the financial contribution to the house. So she had to learn the family business. She had to learn the family way of handling other people's emotions, especially her mother and her sisters. So like absolutely the same character. And being able to find someone who they connect in that way. And I think that was Sam's purpose of that relationship is that two people can seem completely different on paper, because they are. Lexie is quiet, straight A's, good girl, would never do drugs, helps out any person that you can. And Fezco is a hard drug dealer.
But he's quiet and introspective too. Like they're the same.
But that's the thing, is that like when you see it on paper, you're like, these two things have nothing in common. But at the end of the day, they are the same.
Yeah, so all them people tweeting, they don't get it, and they don't think Fezco and Lexie makes any sense. I don't know. Y'all ain't paying attention. That's my take. Sorry. Not really, but sorry. Lady, I think, like, are you a Fezco stan? Is that why you're going crazy right now? Can you relax and just lay down, please? Please?
I think that the thing that I wish had been, I think that truly, like, true to character, and I understand why it's not in here, I think Lexie would have grappled with the morality of what Fezco is doing a little bit more. However, I don't know how much she knew.
Yeah, I don't think so my take on that is like, I don't think she knew very much. And I also think like Lexie is this quiet observer person until she sees like real proof. I don't think she's the person that would bring it up. And we are never put in a situation where like Lexie witnesses some kind of craziness go down with her own eyes. And I think if she would have witnessed that, then yes, 100%. But because she doesn't, I think what Lexie's MO is more just like, she's like a steady kind of person. She just wants to keep rowing the boat, you know? She just wants to keep rowing the boat, and she doesn't want to like cause any waves or anything like that. So yes, she would have said something if she'd seen proof, but she never saw proof
which I'm 100% here for and down for and understand. But I think people who have a tough time separating what character knows and what we as watchers know probably get stuck on that a little bit.
Maybe. And I think also, like, there's a lot of people that think, like, you know, there's probably a lot of people that identify with Lexie that think I would have said something. And so it's hard for them to understand a Lexie that doesn't say something.
And again, Lexie doesn't know anything, so they probably wouldn't have said something if they knew what Lexie knows. And all they know is Lexie knows is that Fez, because that's the other thing too, is Rue has a different dealer. So Fez, as far as she knows, only deals weed because he's the weed man. So like, it's not even harder drugs. And also,
she has no idea.
Harder drugs. It's fine.
Yeah.
And that he beat someone up because he was being a threat to someone that she considers a friend. She considers Jules a friend, and so when she finds out that he beat up Nate because Nate was threatening Jules, then she's like, yeah, that's okay. Like, it's a little scary, but it's okay, and that's something that they worked out.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's easy when you're a teenager to see something like that and not have a proper, like, red flag reaction. Just think like, oh, well, Nate was doing bad, so that's okay, and it makes sense. Like, you don't really make the connection of, like, that was an over the top reaction regardless of what Nate did, you know?
And I'm just so sad that Fezco and Lexie will never get their farm in the countryside with their kids.
Yeah, because after season 2, like, I just want more Fezco and more Lexie, and it's never gonna happen now.
I think we'll get more of both of them, but it'll be interesting to see what Fezco is like without his brother.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I'm nervous for this storyline.
All right. Speaking of,
let's talk about the girl herself, Landon's favorite, Angel. Lexie.
So Lexie is the younger sister of Cassie, who we'll talk about in a second. And as the younger sister who has less possible mental illness that is visible, like her sister is crazy, and she's, you know, probably has anxiety or something.
But she keeps it under control, and Cassie does not.
She is the manager of, she is her sister's keeper. She is like that trope of my sister's keeper, of like the kid that exists because the child, like the idea of my sister's keeper is that a parent has another child because their child is sick and basically needs someone who's related to them to give marrow and everything like that. So she is my sister's keeper in an emotional faction to Cassie, whereas like Cassie is overly emotional. It is Lexie's responsibility to keep everybody else's emotions in check and to be there for the emotional and to calm people down and to kind of be that quiet observer, fly on the wall. And she does this by enabling everyone around her. Like, Rue basically comes out of rehab, doesn't hang out with her, shows up at her house and is like, hey, I need you to piss in a cup for me so I can pass a drug test. And she does.
Lexie does it.
And Lexie does it.
She doesn't say, Rue, fuck you.
Yeah, Lexie doesn't want to be left behind by Rue. Lexie lets her sister treat her terribly. She watches all of these things happen and kind of just accepts it as is. And we don't really get to know Lexie until this season, because she's been through the same thing that her sister has, which is that their dad and mom separated. Mom is obviously an alcoholic. Dad and mom were not good. Sister developed sexually very early, and dad left.
Yeah, and became a really hard drug addict.
Started doing really hard drug addict stuff, and basically left them behind. And Cassie just accepted it, or didn't even accept it, never acknowledged it. She kind of just came through and was like, yep, we're going to forgive dad because at least we have dad in our life. And Lexie has a lot of emotions with that.
Yeah. We'll talk about Cassie's take on that in a minute, because I have thoughts on how Cassie reacted to their dad leaving. But the way that Lexie reacts to their dad leaving is basically to just be like, I'm going to be perfect in an emotional sense. I'm never going to be like mom so that nobody leaves me. And
Yep.
and it's not like in a male attention sense. It's more like in a, I have to make sure nobody freaks out around me because freakouts lead to people bailing.
Again, that like codependency has multiple different terms, and that is hers, is that she will do anything to be the enabler rather than the addict, right? It is the idea of, I will help Rue, not be sober. I will help my sister be out of control. I will help my mother be out of control. I will help all of these things be out of control, because then they can't leave me. If they
Right.
need me, they can't leave me. And so I will
Yes.
be what people need.
And the thing is also is like, what's worse, them leaving me or them being mad at me? And to Lexie, what's worse is them being mad at her.
Oh yeah. And but also she doesn't give them a chance to leave, because if they are mad, they will leave, right? Like that's
Yeah.
the idea of parents were fighting, dad was mad, mom was mad, dad was mad, dad left. So
Mm-hmm.
I can never give them an excuse to be mad at me, because if they're mad at me, they will leave me. So I will be
Mm-hmm.
perfect, and I will give them everything they want, so that they will never be mad at me and they will never leave me. And I
Yep.
think that there are so many young women who feel this way, me included, like growing up, that it's so nice to see this as a character on TV, to be seen. And then in season 2, being given the spotlight to air all of that dirty laundry and do that like big middle finger in the air, sort of like, fuck you guys, I don't care if you leave me anymore, I'm going to tell you the truth. But also
And then
being
she
like,
gets proven right. And then she gets proven right about all of her fears when Cassie storms on stage and makes a big fucking deal.
right.
Yeah.
My favorite thing though is that, like, mom, that was one of my favorite things, that I was like, mom's gonna hate how she's portrayed in this, and mom loved it.
Yeah, it really endeared their mom to me. It made me feel like what Sam Levinson was going for with Lexie and Cassie's mom is like, here's the functioning addict and here's the non-functioning addict. Because like Cassie and Lexie's mom, like her reaction to the play was just like, chef's kiss, perfect. I was like, yeah, that's the only way you could react, to not like destroy your children in the process, because she didn't know Lexie was writing a play about them. She finds out when everyone else does, when she sits down in the audience, and she decides to show Lexie so much grace that she didn't have to show. Because she was betrayed too by not being told about this, by not finding out until the last minute, but instead she chooses to show Lexie so much grace and still support her. And anyway, I just love their mom.
No,
Great.
and I think that, like, Lexie gets to feel seen by mom, and mom finds that incredibly important, which is also why mom like comes on stage and is like, Cassie, you're acting fucking insane. But yeah, no, I think that Lexie represents a lot of young women in high school, that, and also provides a lot of therapy for the people who are obviously the targets of these show, which is the people out of high school, our age, millennial sort of age, that never really got to do that big fuck you moment.
Yeah.
Of being like, I know all, I see all, let me hold the mirror up to your face, so that maybe, just maybe, you can see where you can improve, because what you are doing is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, as immature as that like take is, it's a really fun one.
Bingo. Which is why people loved the play, even if they hated the rest of the season. They still loved this part.
And I also think like these episodes are beautifully shot, where it's like intermingled with the people on stage into then real scenes that happened.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that it's very interesting to see, because one of Cassie's goals, and we'll talk about her in a second, but one of Cassie's goals is to grow up and have a normal family, and that's also Lexie's goal. But the way that like they're both going towards that goal is a beautiful sister relationship, as far as just being to see the two incredibly different takes.
Mm-hmm.
Also with Lexie, there's an amazing scene in the play where she's talking about how her sister got like boobs and hair and was beautiful when she hit like 16 years old, and all the men loved her. And then Lexie's like had a dream sequence almost, where she came out on stage imagining what would be like. And also, Lexie's hot.
Yeah.
Like, I know that the showrunners were being like, this is the dorky younger sister, but like Lexie's hot.
Yeah, but they just dress her like that. It's just like, I mean, look at
Oh
all
yeah.
these shots that we've got of her. I mean, she's got like the little like prairie home get up going on all the time. Like, but if she just dressed hot, she would be hot.
You would be, which I think is also something that like is a statement, because it's like, yeah, you'd also be hot if you acted like your sister acted. Like, it's not about your sister being like, she has huge tits, but like,
But like Maddie doesn't have huge tits, and everyone wants to get with her too. You
yeah,
know.
it is nothing. It has everything to do with action, right? Like yeah, you think you want to receive that sort of male attention, but also Lexie, anytime other than Fez receives male attention, she like freezes up. She hates it. So it's like, okay, this is not actually what you want. You don't actually want to be your sister, because if you did, you would have been.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. She would have just copied her sister. You're absolutely right. But yeah, love
So,
Lexie. Lexie is
love
our
Lexie.
queen. I hope we have even more Lexie in the next season. I love her, so I want to continue this, continue what we've got here in season 3.
All right, the moment you all been waiting for.
Okay, here we go. Cassie, the best character of season 2. She's so good. Okay, she's so beautiful. She's so well written.
Also, this screenshot, this like scene right here was beautiful. Anyway, just
Yep.
see this.
So, okay, so I have some things to say about Cassie, right? People were so mad about Cassie. But the only thing in regards to Cassie's writing that I really took an issue with is it almost seems like she really wasn't that negatively affected by the fact that she had an abortion at the end of the previous season. Like, that doesn't seem to bother her, which feels very strange to me. Like, I don't know how you go through that and don't be bothered for a little while, but she kind of jumps right back into her same thing of where she's trying to get boys and she wants the perfect family, and she and all these things, and she messes with Nate. She messes around with Nate whenever Maddie and him are broken up. And this messing around kind of continues while Nate at the same time is trying to win Maddie back. So Nate is like trying to have his cake and eat it too, right? Like, he wants to have Maddie and then he wants the Cassie side piece, right? And for whatever reason, the fandom didn't say like, man, fuck Nate, fuck him doing this, trying to have his cake and eat it too. What they said was like,
white man accountable for his problematic actions, fandom.
I mean, I'm just saying. But so instead they turn on Cassie and they're like, this bitch stole Maddie's boyfriend. This bitch is crazy. This bitch deserves it. Like, people were haters. And there was like a little contingent on Twitter called the Cassie Hive, where people were defending Cassie. And I'm going to tell you, like, even though I was not participating in the Twitter, 100% Cassie Hive. Okay, Cassie was right. They were broken up at the time. It is on Nate, the fact that he could not make a choice and tried to get both these girls. It is not on her. This is a normal romantic rivalry between Cassie and Maddie. The fact that there was like bullshit lies and deception going on, Nate did that. Nate did that.
Well, also, like, it was a shitty thing to do, right? Like, it was a shitty thing to do. Don't sleep with your best friend's ex-boyfriend. Like, just like, if you don't want to be messy, don't do it. But Cassie and Maddie love messy, so of course they're gonna fucking do it. Like,
and Maddie's not innocent here either. Like, she strings Nate along. She plays like a will they won't they thing with him. Like, she fucks with his head over and over and over.
Yep. And I think there's also like a level of Cassie wants to be Maddie because Maddie has everything Cassie wants. She has the perfect life in Cassie's head.
Yeah. She thinks like Maddie's family's perfect.
And so Cassie just desperately wants to be Maddie. And so of course this is gonna fucking happen. It's shitty, don't get me wrong, and it's very high schooly.
Mm-hmm.
But she didn't do anything outside the norm, because I'll be honest, most people I know fucked their best friend's ex-boyfriends.
Well, there's a reason, like,
Okay,
but there's a reason these things happen, right? Because you're friends with this person. If you are compatible with someone on a friendship level, it's not outside the norm to have similar taste in romance. It's just not. So it is very common that once the couple breaks up, that the person, moves to another person in the friend group. That is very normal. And although Cassie shouldn't have done that, it doesn't make her evil, but everybody talks to her like she's like this fucking evil temptress, but she didn't tempt Nate. Like, she was chilling on that sidewalk, minding her own damn business, and Nate came up to her.
And she was in for it. She consented. She said yes. She made a bad choice too. But Nate was the one that was lying. Nate was lying and stringing both of them along. Nate wanted to eat his cake and have it. And like,
He wanted both of them.
He wanted both of them. He loved the control that Cassie gave him, but he couldn't give up the dream and expectation of what he had in his own head about the fact that him and Maddie are supposed to get married. Mm-hmm. So because here's the deal. Nate doesn't even fucking like Maddie. I actually think him and Cassie make sense more than him and Maddie make sense.
I'm not sure either of them make sense, but I guess I would have to lean the same way, because it's very obvious that he hates Maddie. I mean, like, this scene was kind of stupid. Okay, this was a really weird, stupid scene, but like when Nate comes in and he threatens Maddie with the gun to try to get the disc back, like, if he actually liked Maddie on any level whatsoever, he would have never let himself be that violent with her.
He doesn't like Maddie. What he likes about Cassie is Cassie gives him the control he needs. Mm-hmm. And Cassie likes having the control because that ends up being that codependent relationship of you need to control me and I need you to control me. Right? Like, so that is a symbiotic relationship, which is incredibly unhealthy, but at least makes sense. Mm-hmm. Maddie and Nate hates Maddie. Maddie hates Nate. It doesn't fucking make any sense.
It doesn't, because Nate's interest in Maddie is purely superficial. I mean, they even say that in season 1. It's like, the line is like, the first thing he noticed about her is she was basically hairless. And it's like, so he's with her because she doesn't have visible arm hair. Yes. Cool, great reason. Okay.
Not because she shaved it the whole time. But yeah.
I mean, she has dark hair, so I assume she shaves it too. But whatever. Nate doesn't know that. He just thinks she's hairless.
Hairless, like women are. But Cassie has like this visceral need to be loved, to be cherished, to be loved. Yep. And she sees the toxic relationship of not being able to let each other go that Nate and Maddie have, mm-hmm. which is something that she wanted that with McKay, right? Like, she wanted that with McKay she had a relationship with McKay in the first season, and she wanted that family. She wanted him to chase her. She wanted that. And then it became clear that he didn't, right? He just wanted to control her, but he also didn't want to have her. He didn't miss her when she wasn't around, sort of thing.
Yeah, well, I think Nate, and I think McKay was kind of doing his own thing, right? So I think like where it kind of broke down was McKay realized that Cassie was the sort of person that it's because how she's been treated, right? That she's going to constantly go to sex and her body as the way to make people feel better, right? So like there's a scene where McKay's kind of complaining about some things. They're sitting on the couch, right? And Cassie's reaction to listening to McKay complain is to lean over and kiss him, and he's like, "Why has everything got to be so sexual?" or something like that. I don't remember the exact line, right? Yeah. And so McKay kind of realizes that Cassie is operating with a set of tools that are not compatible with his set of tools, and so he loses interest in her, right? Because Cassie. Yeah, which happens, and Cassie got boobs when she was very young, which garnered a lot of male attention. Okay, I had the same thing. I had people come up to, like, I was a freaking child, and they were like, "I have never seen a woman blossom the way you have." Like, there was someone that said that to me, and like, I mean, I could tell, like, they hug me different, right? So I totally understand where Cassie is, because as soon as that happened to her, everyone gave her all the signals that this is what you're worth.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. Cassie's character makes 100% sense. Yeah. Every aspect of it. going from their dad leaving and her so desperately wishing he would come back that she would let him into the house so that he could steal the silver, that she would never say anything when he is clearly intoxicated and driving with them, that she would never ever do anything to, again, that anger to piss him off, because she didn't trust for him to come back. But, and the same thing happened with McKay, because here's the deal. If McKay had called her after the abortion, she would have been fine with continuing to have a relationship with him.
I think she would have too.
Come back. And it is that going in and coming out. That is what love is for her. Come in, go away, come back. Everything is fine. I need something from you. Everything's like, perfect. I'm going away.
I love you because I always come back. But instead, they have the conversation on the bed at the beginning of season 1, and McKay basically is like, I'm not like that. And I don't think we're compatible.
And he proves it because he doesn't do that. And that is what causes her to cheat in the first season. That is what causes her loads of emotional turmoil. And then that's also why, like, I think that why it also stands out that this whole like had an abortion thing is so incredibly out of character for her not to have a response to, because it's not, for me, it's not even the abortion part of itself. It's the fact that McKay never came back after it. But this entire time that she's having these unhealthy relationships, that she has developed this unhealthy relationship with love, where love is I go away and come back, she's watching Maddie, who is the person she wants to be, and Nate do the same exact fucking thing. And that is what love is. So all of a sudden Nate pulls up on his car and she knows he's capable of giving her the love that she wants.
And it's funny because like she thinks that and says that, right? But she is also very insightful in the fact that that's clearly not what Maddie really wants, because Maddie, you know, is complaining about these sorts of things, and like they're sitting by the pool in this one scene, and Cassie turns to Maddie and she's like, you deserve somebody that's going to like really love you, or something like that. Like she says something like that. So it's like Cassie understands that what she wants is what Maddie actually has, and that's not what Maddie wants. And especially in season 2, I feel like Maddie grows up a lot, right? Like she gets that babysitting job, and she's trying like really hard at that babysitting job and all these things. So, and I think that leads to like Maddie being kind of boring in season 2, unfortunately. But it's because she's kind of growing up. And I hope in season 3 we can kind of, you know, I'd like to see messy Maddie again. I'm not gonna lie. I'd like to see her kind of come back to this and be a little bit messy, but we'll see. I don't know if we're gonna continue with like Maddie getting better and better and Cassie getting worse and worse.
I don't want to see messy Maddie. I want to see Maddie be messy in a different way. Like I don't want to see the Nate and Maddie toxic cycle, right? I want to see what I want to see Maddie being taken advantage of in a different way by different people, because like the whole situation, I don't know if you were watching this and thinking like, oh my God, the mom is so manipulating this young teenage girl. But I thought that throughout this whole thing, that I was like expecting the mom that she was nannying for to just straight up not be a good person.
I don't know. That could be. I mean, they set it up where that could be, but I didn't really see that when I was watching it. I just think that the mom like literally saw a younger version of herself in Maddie and was trying to help.
Which is totally fine, but during this whole thing, there was a whole like idea going around that there is a shot where it zooms on an alarm clock with possibly a camera in it, and then
I saw that. Whatever, that was just a shooting mistake.
No,
people
but the next
read too much in.
But the next scene shoots to Maddie with a sign behind her that says, "Smile, you're on camera." I'm just saying that if this comes to be a thing, the cookie crumbs were laid beautifully.
And here's what I'm saying. Maybe they'll do that, but if they do that, okay, I believe they got the idea from Twitter, and it was probably not the original intent. This is why we said at the beginning with the reaction, like that the fact that all these people were tweeting about it was a huge reason why people thought the things they thought and felt the things they felt about season 2, because it was like a collective, you know, kind of feeding each other these things.
I like it. And if they steal it, I'm okay with it. Um,
Well, I wish shows would steal fan ideas more. Maybe then Game of Thrones wouldn't have crashed and burned the way that it did. Or, anyway.
and I have an unpopular opinion that I liked how Game of Thrones ended.
Well,
Anyway, we're gonna keep talking about Cassie. No, I think that incredibly beautiful character.
yeah.
Also, Sydney Sweet, who is the actress, is amazing.
She's really good.
She
She's
is now
really good.
I want to see her in everything. She is now top of my list of favorite actresses currently, and not just because she is pretty, but also because she is talented. She's fantastic. Love her.
Yeah. She's really, really good. I definitely think as far as the acting in this show goes, which in season 2 overall, the acting is fantastic. But she really stands out as an excellent actress to me.
Yeah, I think that she's one of the best actresses.
Yeah, she's really, really good. Really, really good.
All right. Last but not least.
Okay. Last, we would like to talk about Elliot. So we put Elliot last because there's only a few things that we really wanted to say about him, but he was a major character in season 2. He was a new character for season 2, so we felt like we could not acknowledge Elliot. That being said, though, Landon, how did you feel about Elliot? What did you think?
I had two thoughts. One, the song was entirely a verse too long. I didn't mind that it existed in there. It just was a verse too long.
Well, and then he's like, it's not really finished. I'm like, that was the whole song, sir. I'm not dumb.
No. That's the whole thing. I think Elliot exists because we do not have a character who is able to keep up and relate to Rue and also not be a recovering Rue and like her mentor is, or done with her shit or unaware of her shit. We needed to see someone who could keep up and do drugs with Rue that is not an addict and is not in sobriety.
Yep.
And that's what Elliot provided. He provided context for, hey, this is where normal is and this is where Rue is.
Yeah, I know,
right?
I totally agree. I think that unfortunately that made Elliot a little boring. Like his existence really was so just to show that, like, hey guys, I just want to remind you that you can do drugs without becoming an addict. Like, it is possible. And Elliot does plenty of drugs, and he never once shows addictive behavior. He never once doesn't follow through with his commitments. He doesn't go off the rails. He doesn't lie to his friends. He's a pretty cool, chill person.
Who also is messy because he's sitting here flirting with Rue and also flirting with Jules, knowing
but he's hanging out with them 24/7. It's a little messy, but it's not that messy. Let's be real.
It is messy. It is not high school mess. It is not. Yeah. It would not be considered messy in high school, but it is looking back on it, you're like, man, sir, just have a conversation with the both of them instead of making out with both of them at separate times. If you want it to become a threesome or a triad, communicate it, man.
Yeah, but they're in high school, so I wouldn't expect them to do it. I would just expect in high school people to just kind of try it out and see what happens. They wouldn't talk about it like adults would.
I understand that. However, I still had that thought where I was like, just communicate. But another thought that I had about him, I don't remember what episode it was, but it was at some point that I was just looking at him and I was like, man, for someone with a face tattoo, you're so boring.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong, my friend.
Because I'm sorry, it takes a certain kind of person to be willing to have a face tattoo right here and right here.
And on his eyelids. He has X's on his eyelids.
Oh, I forgot about that. That's not Elliot. Elliot is so boring. Yeah, he's fine. He was like McKay existed to give Nate. I feel like McKay existed to give Nate some context.
Yeah.
Elliot exists to give Rue context.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And unfortunately that makes him boring. And so when you look at the fandom, people don't really have a lot to say about Elliot. And the truth is because there's not a lot to say. He was in every episode doing absolutely fuck nothing.
The song is I really liked the song. I really liked the song, except for there was like one part where it started to end and then it kept going, and that was the one part that I was like, I'm done with this now. But the song was beautiful. I do like the idea that Elliot provided Rue insight into who she was. Like that he can meet her on her level and still find worth in her, especially after everybody had kind of left her because of her actions. I did appreciate that, but there was no real story follow through with that. Like it existed and then it didn't.
Oh my god, this cat has made me open and close this door like I feel like 6 times this stream. I don't know how many times it's been, but she's being crazy.
She's sorry, like, it was my birthday on Thursday, and so really I need attention, and I need you to give it to me now.
We had a whole party for you, girl. We had a whole party.
That was a precedent that you sent. That wasn't that was the expectation.
I guess. Now they expect purdies now.
Purdies. Yeah. Elliot's.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So yeah, Elliot. He's a little bit boring, unfortunately. Lunar, oh my gosh, you're here finally right at the end. Thank you so much for joining us today. Okay, so here we come to the end of the stream. So Landon, for season 2 of Euphoria, did it resonate?
Yes, absolutely. As someone who has loved an addict, as someone who has dealt with codependency my entire life, both by witnessing it and existing it in my own relationships, season 2 resonated in and made me feel seen in ways that a TV show hasn't before, without feeling like it was romanticizing the things that have been hurtful in my life. And it is completely resonating for me. I understand that I am the perfect combination of the goal audience. I am an empathetic human being who has experienced relationships that have both addiction and codependency in them, and that is not the majority of the people. So I recognize that as well.
Yep. I understand.
What about you?
Okay, so the answer is yes. I think season 2 resonated with me for a very different reasons than season 1 did, but I really enjoyed seeing what felt to me like a very realistic version of a teenager going through addiction. And so for those reasons, it did resonate with me. And I say that with the understanding of why it didn't resonate for a lot of people and why they felt like season 2 was so much worse than season 1. But I'm hoping through what we said at the beginning of this stream that you now understand that season 1 and season 2 are the same kind of trash. They're the same kind of trash. Season 2 was not significantly worse than season 1. It just had a different focus, and therefore you might not have felt that sense of verisimilitude that you felt with season 1.
Season 1 was in those like Glad fresh scent trash bags, and season 2 is in like a classic black bag.
Yeah, but it's still trash in there. Yeah, like it's still McDonald's wrappers and stuff, you know.
Like, and you still had the same meal plans for both of them. It's just that you had one with perfume and the other one not.
Well, it's just more different storylines, right? More different stories. Yeah, so yes, season 2 resonated with me. I don't know necessarily if somebody like was in love with season 1 that I would like recommend season 2 to them. I think for Euphoria, for a lot of people, it's totally fine to just watch season 1 and stop. That might be the better experience for you. But for me, I enjoyed both seasons.
I think season 2 has a lot to say, and that those lessons are important. And if you are willing to go in and watch a TV show for the lessons and the theme, rather than for the entertainment and escapism.
Yeah.
Like I think that there are places and genres and TV shows and books and things like that is the purpose why we read them, is for the lessons that they are teaching. Season 1 is for the escapism and fun. Season 2 is for the lessons to learn.
Yeah. Yep. So it's just different vibes.
Very different vibes.
Yep.
It's like a late night after party of the same party.
Right.
That's the metaphor. Season 1 is the rager. Season 2 is like after most people have left and we started like gathering around the fire and someone got a guitar from somewhere. It's 100% what season 2 is. Same party.
Yeah.
Same party. Very different vibe.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap up. Where can you find us? So you can find me and all of my VODs on YouTube. So here's all my socials. You can find all of the streams there. We also have a Discord server. It's mostly focused on roleplay help because text-based roleplay was how we got started, as most of you guys know. But there's other fun stuff in there if you'd like to join and hang out. It is also the best way to get reliable notifications for this stream because I don't control the Twitch notifications, but I make sure that those Discord ones go out. Next week, we are actually taking a break. So it is Easter weekend next week. And when we looked at everything, it just didn't make sense to have a stream then. So we're actually taking a quick, short little break. We will be back after that though. But Landon unfortunately is going to be busy. So we'll actually be doing some Sims 2.
Sims 2?
Yeah, so we're going to go back to our Landon legacy. So we will have Landon the Sim. She's an old lady now, but we're going to have some fun.
Gotcha. I love that.
Yes. And then on Thursday, we're going to be doing more of our Nuzlocke. So if you would like to join me for the Leaf Green Nuzlocke, I also stream on Thursdays. That is my solo stream just by myself for that. Also, 3 weeks on this stream, we're going to have our community day. We're going to be playing Don't Starve together. So if you're interested in that, definitely hop in the Discord and get the farmer role so you can get all the information for that next community day.
And I'll be there for that. I'm excited to join us for our community day.
Yes. All right. So that's where you can find me. Landon, where can everybody find you?
You can find me at Land in Maine. I post fun things and adventures. And also you can find me at Land. That's on Instagram. Also on Twitter, it's the same handle, Land in Maine. And sometimes I post hot takes. So come see me there.
We love Landon's Twitter. And if you would like to support me on this stream, you can do so in all of the usual ways. I have a tip jar down there. You can subscribe, you can do bits, etc. If you would like to support Landon directly, I also have linked in the chat her Amazon wish list, and you can get her something off of that wish list. And if you could help me slowly peer pressure into Landon having her own stream, we're going to manifest the time. We're going to manifest the time.
Summer break is coming up, and I might. It's coming up, so who knows?
Y'all hear
I'll have
that?
a lot of free time on my hands.
Y'all hear it? Y'all hear it? I hear that. Yes, Spiderland, Lunar. We're going back to Spiderland. Okay. All right, you guys. We are going to raid. None of my friends are online right now, so I looked for a Don't Starve Together stream, and I hope this one is good. I haven't listened to it, but I liked their description. They're a non-binary person. They're playing Don't Starve Together. Their title says 18 plus, big vibes, toxic panda, maybe, lol, and then a bunch of like, exclamation points. So I'm honing in on that 18 plus. I'm honing in on that word toxic. They look cool. Like their stream looks beautiful. So hopefully they're cool.
They're part of the LGBTQ mafia, which we love and support.
Right. They're here for the agenda. So for the agenda, we're going to go raid into this new friend, Giant Panda 620. So y'all give them a big Karen and Landon. Oh, Landon, can you? Yeah, there you go. Can you give them a big hello from us? And there we go. So, oh no, they don't allow raids. Freaking lovely. Of course they don't, because they probably have gotten hate raided before because they have 2,000 followers. Anyway, let me find another Don't Starve Together stream. I was really excited for that one. I'm so sorry, you guys. It's Gemini_Panda_620 if you want to check them out. Oh, boo. Oh, boo. Okay, well, we'll click on this other Don't Starve Together stream. They look cool. Oh, wait, they don't speak English. My God, you guys. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Well, here, we'll raid into this person. There's a person I'm following, Shady Joker. I know they have a good stream. I was trying to raid someone smaller because they already have tons of viewers pretty regularly. But yeah, anyway, we'll raid into Shady Joker. It's fine. It's fine. He's a good stream. Okay. Joker. Okay, there we go. There, that one worked. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We will see you later. And of course, as always, don't forget to make it a great day.
And don't forget to be awesome.
All right. Bye, guys. See you later.